Okay, just sent it on Twitter.
Yes.
Ye oldie Twittery.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for tuning into my LinkedIn live show. We are broadcasting live on air on all of the social media platforms right now, primarily on LinkedIn Live, but we are multi-streaming it to Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and YouTube and all other social media platforms. So wherever you are joining us from, let us know in the comments. Let us know which social media platform that you are using, so that we will know that you guys can watch us and we can get your comments.
Who's still in Periscope? Who?
I don't know if anybody out there, right?
Speak up. We should do a quick survey of like who actually, because I think everybody's forgotten about Periscope.
Exactly.
Maybe it's where all the cool kids are hanging out. And we just don't know, and no one told us.
Yeah,
they told you, but not me.
People are watching. Well, in fact, on the last show, I thought nobody's going to watch on Periscope, but about 245, which is still bare minimum. But I thought nobody will watch on Periscope, which is good.
That's like when you go to your web traffic and you're like, there's that one person with IE6. You're like,
I know, right?
Upgrade, man, upgrade. What's going on? Yeah.
I know. So, hey, without further ado, let me introduce the guest for the hour. But before I introduce him, I want to talk to you very particular about, how I met with him and what was my take before I met with him, right? So I met with him on social media, just like most of us are, like on Twitter. So I stalked him for a while.
I'm not real. This is all animated.
And on LinkedIn, and I guess on I met with him on most of the Twitter chats out there. So on the web, I know this person, really cool. He talks really fast. He talks very thoughtful. He has a great podcast, great speaking session. But when I met with him in person, oh my God, I've never met such a down-to-earth person. This is real. What busy schedule he has, wherever he is, wherever in the mix of people he is, he will step away and give the attention that you are looking forward to getting from. So thank you so much. So thank you so much, James, for being such a wonderful person as you are.
Oh, no, end of interview. We're done. I can't handle it. So so full disclosure, in my head, I cannot absorb compliments in any way, shape, or form. I have a metaphor. What? I have a metaphor? Yes, I have a metaphor. It's when anybody gives me a compliment, it's as if they've handed me a live squid, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. It's just like, okay, it's just there. So I can't absorb that. Thank you. I don't know what that is. I have nothing. I should throw a smoke bomb and just disappear at this point. I don't know where to go with this.
Well, that's
it's all downhill.
You're being just you. So that's the nature of you, right? I mean, he cannot take compliments.
Your poor viewers.
So James Ellis, everybody, he's the director of employer brand at Universum.
Yay.
So James, thank you so much for being with me today morning to kick off the second episode of my LinkedIn Live show. So we're going to have a great conversation on employer branding. And before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about you and your background. How did you get into employer branding right now? So if anybody from my network who doesn't know of who you are, please do me a favor.
Well, you started the interview by saying I'm a complete loudmouth on social media. So anybody who doesn't know who I am is actively trying to avoid me, which I buy. I think it's a valid strategy. And like everybody else in employer brand, I went to school for it. I have a degree in employer brand. None of this is true. None of it. We've all made it up every single day. We tripped into it. We all have these weird stories of like, well, I was in social media and I said, I want that job. And I just convinced somebody to do that job. And they said, here, do that job. And I screwed it up a bunch and I got better at it. And then I'm here. I had a similar story. I was a marketer. I'm a marketer like at birth almost. I have marketer DNA. I've done every kind of marketing. I've done pharmaceutical marketing. I've done event marketing. I've done B2B, B2C, software marketing, .com, .bomb, very much a dot bomb. I've done it all. And then I kind of landed in recruitment marketing because someone poached me from a very big agency we won't talk about at the moment. And I realized this is a really funny spot because you take all the stuff and all the other marketing is the same. You just kind of say, oh, here are the 10 rules, you apply it. Boom, 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 you do it. Doesn't matter if it's drugs and pharmaceuticals or it's software or it's, I don't know, whatever it is. You just kind of just apply the rules as you see fit. Recruitment marketing, you do that and you fail. And the reason is that there's this weird difference in recruitment marketing and employer brand. That is, if I'm selling you a donut, if I'm selling you an ice cream cone, if I'm selling you a taco, if I'm selling you anything and you have $1, that's the conversation. You're hungry, you have $1. Boom, boom, boom. It's a transaction. It's done. At no point do I ask you, hey, when's the last time you had a donut? Can you offer me 3 references of people who've seen you eat donuts? Hey, there's a gap of 3 months. The last time you ate a donut. Can you explain this gap in your, that doesn't happen, right? Recruitment marketing, employer brand is a function of quantity or quality rather than quantity. And that really doesn't happen anyplace else. And so it's magical. It's weird. It's strange. It's so much unexplored territory of how do you apply good, sound marketing thinking to a place where the ground shifted, but no one talks about it. So that to me is why I kind of do what I do. I love exploring this idea. I love, diving into what does it mean to take all this amazing technology and thought processes and strategies and all this marketing thinking and applying it in a very new way. You have to really rethink it all the way through. And frankly, thinking and talking is all I like to do. So it's perfect for me.
This is actually, thank you so much for sharing that. This is actually a great segue to the topic of the hour, right? I mean, where you talked about, you're coming from a marketing background for sure. So audience, anybody who's listening, watching, and who is into employer branding, lives in the talent acquisition or HR department, hear it from a marketing person in terms of, how to get it right at the very beginning. Yeah. So you had this profound thought when I connected with you, hey, Nisha. I want to talk about employer branding as a means to add value to the culture or to as a system, right? Instead of seeing it as a trick to attract more candidates or to get more applicants, and one side of talent acquisition group or the people who are handling that spectrum, I've always seen that they are always about metrics. They're always about the number of applicants that they can get in. They are always about the, how many likes, shares, comments, the quantitative aspect, but missing the quality piece, if you will.
Yeah.
So tell our audience in terms of, if somebody is sitting there in the talent acquisition function or HR function and somebody who's starting this from scratch, they might be putting some content out there on social media. They might be investing some money to hire some vendor to create some fancy videos, or they might be looking for metrics who they don't even know what matters the most for them. So guide them, tell them in terms of where should they start in order to have an overall view of how to bringing that employer branding journey right from scratch.
I thought you were going to ask me a big question. That's easy. The answer is 7, obviously. The answer is 42. The answer is dolphin. That's the problem, is that anybody who tells you that employer brand is something that you could be sold or a tool you can apply or a solution you can use is lying to you. And trust me, there are many people who will tell you employer brand is X. It's Glassdoor scores, it's sentiment, it's your net promoter score, it is the number of applicants, it's how much traffic your website gets, it's how many followers you have on this social media or that social media. And all of that is true and in the aggregate, but individually it's not. If you have the concept of marketing is that attraction is only the very beginning of things. So if I stand outside in a chicken outfit with a sign that says, look at me, I'm going to get a lot of attraction and none of it's going to be useful to me. If you put an ad out that says free pizza and beer, click here and you're going to get a lot of people clicking that, but then they're going to get mad at you when there's no free pizza and beer at the end of it. Buying attraction has never been a trick. The question is, how do you think of this thing as a system? And I'm a huge lover of systems thinking. How do you manage the idea? How do you see all the big pieces? How do you see how the pieces interact and impact each other? So if you do what you're supposed to do and you focus on your job alone, and your job as a sourcer, your job as a recruiter, your job as a hiring manager, your job as a recruitment leader, your job as the C-suite person, whatever it is, and you do and look at only your job and you do it perfectly. You do it amazingly. You're thinking they're going to let me write a book. They're going to put my name on the front of the office. This is going to be fantastic. If you do that job amazingly, you're actually messing it up for everybody else. If you're a sourcer and you're told, go find me a bunch of data scientists, and you find all the data scientists, you've actually made everybody's job harder. You did your job right. You found the people you were supposed to be looking for, but you found too many and you didn't sort and you didn't find. You're not focused on the entire process. If you're the recruiter and you were told go find great applicants, and you say, great, I found 500 applicants, and you hand them all to the hiring manager is going to say, what are you talking about? If you're the hiring manager and you spend your time focusing on interviewing 100 different people for one job, you're doing it wrong. But that's the job. Individually, those are the jobs you're supposed to be doing. Now, if you take 2 or 3 steps back and you say, oh, it's a big system, that this concept of hiring is a big system, and it is impacted by consumer products, what's in the news, how the recruiters act, how the sourcers act, how the hiring manager act, what's the interview like, what's the office like, what's the location of the office, what's the industry you're in, do you do good customer service, or did I have a touch point and interact with the brand before? In what capacity was that? All those things are a system that drive my perception of what it's like to work there. And that moment allows me to say, I understand what's going on, and I understand what it's like to work here, which is the underlying principle of employer brand. If you think of it as a system, it turns out everybody has a role to play. It's a big machine. It's a big, lots of cogs, and no one cog is in charge, but any one cog can screw it up for everybody. So if any one piece breaks, the whole machine stands still. So if you think of hiring as a big system, you start to go, okay, I need to soften my sourcers. I need to feed my sourcers better talking points, or I need to support them as they move people from sourcing to recruiting. Okay, what are the things recruiters should be feeding them that sets them up for a good interview, that lets them filter out what's a valid candidate, what's a not great candidate? What are the hiring managers doing that's, we all have hiring managers for whom you have an amazing offer acceptance rate and an atrocious offer acceptance rate. What's the difference? If you see them as hiring managers, they're the same. But truly, one is looking at their, is really engaging with people and giving people reasons why they work there and talking about what people are going to get out of working there. And the other person is looking on their phone during the whole interview. Well, those things have to line up. And then the leadership has to make strategic decisions, and they have to decide who are the people we're trying to approach, and what do the salaries look like, and what do the benefits look like, what do the policies look like. And every little piece of all these things and frankly, I'm just touching the surface here. All those pieces matter. So if you were handed the keys to the employer brand, you are in a weird role. You have effectively all this responsibility, right?
Yes.
Like, look at this, and I love to bring up this story. I wish I could remember who pointed it out. It might have been Shrew Mahatra. It might have been Audra at Night. I don't remember. But it was this idea that these are companies who talk about Women's History Month, right? Was that March? I want to say it's March. And of course, all their career sites, women. Great. What's your maternity policy?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So talk a great game all you want.
Work-life balance.
Yeah, talk a great game all you want, but the policies dictate so much. But policies are written by HR, and we don't actually control them, which we don't. But the policies dictate the marketing message, dictates the employer brand. Every single person, marketing, HR, comms, comp, Ben, leadership, the hiring managers, the business, all these people play a part in what the employer brand is. And the employer brand manager who owns it has zero power over any of it. How can you be expected to drive the car when you're in the trunk? I mean, that's really what you're expected to do. When stuff goes wrong, they point at you. You did it wrong. It's like, what'd I do? That's not my policy. That was comp and Ben. That was leadership. That was strategy. And yet you are expected to fix it. So an employer brand is really all about seeing the big system, because when you see it as a system, you realize you don't have any power, and that's fine. It's okay to not have power. You're supposed to have influence. You're supposed to nudge pieces into place and nudge alignment and suggest, hey, of the 1,000 touch points a candidate's getting, there's a problem here. I'm going to go talk to them and try to help them understand. And he slapped a big smile on, right? Help them understand how they're screwing up life for everybody and how they need to stop and why that matters. And you have a good conversation, and you should bring some donuts or whiskey. Your mileage will vary. But you are an influencer. And frankly, you influence all the pieces of the company. And that's an amazing, amazing, amazing job. But most people just go, I manage a glass door. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
So this is I think, for the most part, I guess, the senior leadership or the people who makes the decision sees the value in it. Okay, this is a holistic process. So it's
Mhm.
not just about the increasing the Glassdoor review.
Yep.
It's not just about,
I don't know.
getting more traffic to career side
There's
where
still
we
people
need
who
to
talk.
stick together.
I still see people talking in those terms. I mean, this is
Yeah.
2019, and you think by now we'd have learned a trick or two. And I still see people. There's a Harvard Business Review article that effectively said,
I saw that.
made me nuts, and it said
Yeah, true. I had no clue what's going on.
employer brand should have something to do with the consumer brand. You're like, yeah, we know that.
So
Hello.
that gives me, the opinion that the employer branding, it's still new. We as a group has been into this initiative or has been into this new process of employer branding since the last, I guess, maybe a decade. Or if you take a look at it, 5 years, the last 5 years, it was really closer to where most of the organization is really investing and having an employer branding role, bringing in marketing to their talent acquisition team and making it as, okay, we need a new skill set in order to launch this. Just a recruiter might not be able to do.
Yeah.
But I see that, I mean, when I saw the Harvard, article, I felt like, really, people, they still don't get what employer branding is.
Yeah,
I mean,
they really don't.
there may be many organizations out there who are still wanting to, be a part of, wanting to learn, want to, explore and experiment. So that's how I feel. We need to add, more value. We need to share more about it so that way people can get educated. And that's why I have you on my show.
And that's why it's a fun job, because there is no metric. There's no obvious, I made the Glassdoor score up. I made the traffic number go up. I made the number of applicants go up. It's like, yeah, no.
And what?
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter. And that's nice. That's good. And that's probably something you should concern yourself with and be aware of and should spend some time working on. But that's like saying, I worked on the car by changing the tires. Good job, me. It's like there's so many more pieces and so many more ways as things that fail that could keep the car from going anywhere.
We have one question came up on our LinkedIn platform, but before I take that, I have one more follow-up thought that you shared. System versus partner, power versus influence. That are the two concepts that you shared right now. So what's your take in terms of, we have different roles within our organization, and roles, of course, they made up for some reason, right? And when they do a particular project, we need to make sure that the right people are in it, and they have the, authority to make some decision, and the hiring managers or the manager who is responsible for that particular project needs to listen, first of all.
Yeah.
So tell our audience in terms of that role versus, it's not a namesake role, first of all. And if you're inviting people from other functions within the organization, let's say communications, marketing, or you have your social media geek and whatnot, to partner with your talent acquisition team, on an ideal scenario, what would you recommend to that particular team in order to how they should partner?
Yeah, it's tough. And I always see the role of an employer brand professional as the conductor of the orchestra. At no point does the conductor make any sound. They don't play the instrument. They can't, I mean, the most they can do is fire the second clarinet. The most they can do is yell at, the third violin, but they have no real power. But they are seen as the focal point. And they create the cadence and they create the process, and they decide, okay, this is when we peak and this is when we ebb, and this is the process, and this is when you come in, and this is when, hold on, let me get the camera. Hold on there, because we're coming over this way, we're coming over this way. That's the job, is to say, okay, look, okay, social media geek, I know you want to get off and running and you want to use that hot new sexy social media channel like TikTok or something. Good for you. But I don't know it yet, or our audience isn't there yet, or our audience doesn't need you. So why don't you wait, and I'm going to have the content folks talk, or the video folks talk, or let's get some hiring managers to come into a Facebook Live and talk about what kind of questions they ask in an interview or what they're looking for. And let's start to pull that together, and let's start to thread that and record that, and let's put it on the career site, and we'll push it out to university hiring. And then we'll do, you're just kind of managing and arranging these pieces. Now, you're probably also going to have to fill in some gaps, which is where the metaphor of the conductor kind of falls apart. Occasionally, you're going to need to pick up the flute and say, okay, we need this little spot here. And you got to put a flute in there. But that's all I have to do. Mostly, my job is to create focus and manage that focus. Where are we all going? What are we all trying to do? What is the appropriate order? How do I take and funnel and harness the energy of the social media person and the content person and the hiring manager and the recruiter and how do I harness that energy to simmer until I need them to kind of sit tight and not blow things out of the water? But then when the time comes, say, okay, it's almost time. Ready? Are you ready? Go. And then you just let them roll because you know how to put that stuff together. So as the job progresses, what you start to do is say, okay, if I see all the pieces lined up, if I see the entire orchestra, when do I focus on Glassdoor? When do I focus on content? When do I focus on video? When do I focus on social? When do I focus on interview training? When do I focus on talking to comms and making sure that my architecture and their architecture makes sense? When do you talk to investor relations? That's the one that never gets talked about, but having worked in a public company, I know how incredibly important it is to get your investor relations person on board, because the core corporate brand, which is a function of leadership and mission and vision, turns into, marketing and turns into the consumer brand and the employer brand, but also turns into the investor brand. So if you are the children of that single mother, you should all talk to each other and kind of understand, hey, they've got a cadence of quarterly earnings reports. They've got a cadence of releasing information about who's buying and selling stock. You cannot ignore that information, because if your message of this is a great place to work next to stock price dropped 7% in one day, worst sell-off ever, well, then you should have just never spoken. That's on you. You had to have known that, hey, you're going to release earnings and, hey, slow play that a little bit. So understanding all those pieces and seeing it, talking to, what's the package, what's the consumer product, what's the customer service, all that stuff, seeing all the pieces and deciding, I know what to use now. I know where to go now. I know how to connect dots. When I was at Groupon, it took me a while to kind of get acclimated to all the different players. But then you start to go, okay, if I have a social media problem here, the last person I'd ever think of is talk to customer service. And yet somehow customer service is exactly the right person to talk to solve my social media problem, because they talk to customers all the time. They hear what's going on. They hear what the complaints are. They hear what the good things are. And they're good at social media because we train them. So how do you kind of help one connect to the other? Now, doing that requires, and this is my favorite part, zero budget.
Absolutely.
And I am a stingy guy. I am the MacGyver McScrooge of employer brands. I do not like to spend money if I don't absolutely have to. So looking into places where you have resources that you can tap into, that's half the job, because no one, and I mean, I've talked to Amazon and I've talked to massive companies, and they all think that they're rubbing pennies together. Nobody thinks they have enough money. Nobody thinks they have enough money. I'm sure Google is going, I don't know how we're going to spend this $4.5 billion. How are we going to use this? I guess our pockets are empty. I guess only
we have another problem to figure out, which is having a lot of money, right?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I think that the trick with recruiting an employer brand is we assume someone else has all the resources they need. And the answer is no, they don't. They do not. No one feels rich. No one feels like they have everything they need. Everyone is rubbing the pennies together, hoping to make 3 pennies from 2. Everybody's trying to find a way to make something happen. The scale might be different, but nobody thinks they have enough. And if we can all individually absorb this idea that there is no such thing as that one nirvana where everybody has all the resources they need, then go ahead and start working on what you have. Go ahead and start working on what you have resources to use now.
So I guess, from your point where you talked about that architecture and the resources, right? I mean, first of all, they need to, open their eyes and see what are the talent that they have within the team and trying to utilize that instead of trying to spend more money and bring in something new. Maybe, you will seek people cross-functionally who can partner, who will be more inclined into what you are trying to do. So look for that too. I want to touch base on that architecture piece where we talked about. So Let's think of, the EVP, quote unquote,
Mhm.
the employee value proposition or employer value proposition, whatever
Yeah.
you name it in your organization. So
Oh,
can you,
let's take it, expand it. It's the
yeah,
employer brand, it's the value promise, it's the brand promise, it's the brand positioning, it's the EVP. I mean, as a concept, it's this thing, but we've applied so many different labels to it.
totally.
It's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So from that architecture piece, let's say, for example, for those organizations who have been doing employer branding work, but they haven't actually created a quote unquote or officially created an EVP.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to those organizations? Where should they start? Or should they stop doing what they do? Should they be creating EVP? Or should they be doing whatever they are doing on social and on digital, but trying to catch up with what they are trying to, promote as per their EVP?
Yeah. So there's two real answers in the schools of thought here. And the first one is, and it's based on this idea that you can't read the label of the jar from inside the jar. And most of us are inside the jar. If you're working for company X, it's very hard to step out of the company and say, what's it look like as a candidate, as a complete and total stranger? I've been here for 4 years. I know all the ins and outs, and I know why things work, and I know why things happen. I know how I got all of it. I can fill in the gaps. I've created a positive impression. But from the outside, what does that look like? And that's really hard to do. And that's a place where an agency, a company, or hiring somebody, whether it's a consultant or just bringing in a brand new set of eyes, has a lot of power. So when I work, one of the funny things is I job hop a lot generally as a consultant or in-house agency, whatever. I like to keep things new. And some companies go, well, you don't know us. And I say, yeah, that's right. That's actually a bonus. You want someone who doesn't know you because that's how candidates see you. That's how candidates are perceiving you. So you need to bring in someone who's relatively new to dive in and go, what am I seeing first, right? Mm-hmm. When there's a web trick or design trick that you say, okay, if you close your eyes and you pull up your homepage and you open them, you count to 5 or count to 3 and you close them, what do you remember seeing? That is your brand. That is what you see. That's functionally the same thing as what an employer brand person does. They kind of quickly look around at your Glassdoor and websites and job descriptions and people and go, okay, this is clearly a place where everybody likes each other and one works together. Great. Let's build on that. Or this is a place where everybody's competing and they're focused and they're stabbing each other in the back. It's just a Shark Tank. It's amazing. Great. Work on that. And both answers are completely appropriate. But if you're a shark, you see the world as sharks and you don't understand how you being a shark is different from other places. You don't see it. You can't know it. Now, the other school of thought is, in the same vein that you still can't read the label from inside the jar, you can apply data to these thinking. So you to say, okay, let's survey the heck out of people. Let's really understand, what do people think about this company? What do they like? Now, the problem there is that, again, nobody has a frame of reference. I was in a focus group recently where we asked someone, what do you like working about this company? And if the words out of her mouth was, well, this is the first place I've ever worked. So, and then she proceeded to answer the question. You're like, I'm sorry, you have no frame of reference. You can't say this company is really good at X because you've never seen another company. You don't know. Mm-hmm. And frankly, that's mostly true of most human beings. They've only worked at a handful of companies. They have very, very thin frames of reference. They don't know what it's like to work at massive Google, Amazon, Netflix, but they also don't know what it's like to work at a startup. Very few people have that kind of frame of reference, or a government or a state government or a consumer packaged goods company. There's so many different kinds of companies that you can't know it all. So that's where having the data really comes in. It says, okay, let's evaluate and ask people good questions, but at the same time, and I think this is also key, let's look outside for data. So let me describe a company. We're a fun, energetic, dynamic company. We have a great work-life balance. We all go home by 8 o'clock every night. Now, that sounds like crazy talk, except it's at a law office. That's perfectly appropriate. This idea, what a law office sees as fun and dynamic and collaborative and work-life balance is so different from what a startup or a government or you call it whatever. And understanding your frame of reference, understanding the context in which your company exists is so key to understand. If you've only worked at 1 or 2 companies, you don't know what it's like in other industries and other companies. And honestly, we've come to the point where if you're hiring anybody, you don't focus very often in the industry. If you're hiring a project manager, you can hire a project manager from construction and pharmaceuticals and software. They do functionally the same job. If you're hiring a nurse, doesn't matter if they were an emergency clinic nurse or if they were a hospital nurse or if they worked in private practice. No, their job is functionally the same. It doesn't matter. You don't have to say we can only work with people who've worked in this industry. Those days are gone. So you have to be able to say, for someone coming from outside the industry, coming into this industry, we have to spell out the context of what this company's like. We can't just say fun, dynamic, cool, work-life balance, because people go, oh, it's like this, and they're wrong. Right? When people talk about the values of the company, the thing they usually miss most often is they pick a handful of really positive words, really happy, feel-good words, and they put them on posters. And they go,
totally.
Got it, we're done. And I always go, what happens when that value and that value are in competition, when they conflict, when they don't quite? Who wins? Because whoever wins is actually your value. The other one's just the thing you say to be nice. My favorite is like diversity and inclusion, which I'm a huge proponent of, but you can't say you're all about diversity and inclusion and then also saying you're all about something else and then say, okay, well, this one always beats diversity and inclusion. It's like, well, guess what? Then throw diversity and inclusion out. You're just saying it because you think you're supposed to. If you cared about it, if you truly embraced it as a value, you would say, we are going to hire more people of color, more women of color, more LGBTQ. We are going to hire more of these things and not kind of say, we would like to if they showed up. That's not a value.
Yeah, that's more deliberate effort right there. In order to, that's where we need metrics, right? Okay, look at the talent pool that you have, the employees that you have within the organization, and then create an agenda in terms of, okay, how do we increase it? Where do we go? What are the markets where we should go and be there in the market and try to recruit the people? Or what are the avenues that we need to look at online to advertise? And then eventually, move that needle to increase the metrics that you're talking about, where we need more male or more female or more, whatever category that you have.
Yeah.
So,
but to me, that's why when they talk about values, and values are so important to what your employer brand is, because they're the reason people show up. If you say you're a mission-driven organization, I worked for a nonprofit, and it was like, the place was full of zealots and people who were like, I'm happy to take the pay cut to support this university I work at. And I
hear that every single day.
Who are these? What? That doesn't sound like me. And I was a weird fit, granted. And I didn't go to that school, so I didn't have that same love. So it's a separate thing. But there are places where mission is everything. And if you're truly mission driven, you should be expected to sacrifice. If you're truly D&I driven, you should be expected to sacrifice. To me, the litmus test of a value is, what are you willing to give up to get that value? If your value is all about innovation, great. Are you willing to give up an extra hour of your week to focus more on innovation? If your value is all about empowerment, great. Are you willing to take a 10% pay cut to be empowered to do that job? If you're not willing to take a metaphorical punch in the face, you don't want that thing. Right.
And I think it should happen within the culture.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. But beyond
like the point that you said about innovation, let's say, for example, an organization where a candidate is a nonprofit organization and the candidate is coming and saying, yeah, I can take a pay cut because at this part of my career, I see that, I'm adding more value to the organization. And when they compare that opportunity with any other, I would say, for-profit organization or any other organization for that matter. So here is the value proposition that a recruiter can give. Hey, we have this innovation club or whatever you can call within the organization where you can keep on learning, keep on innovating, and then improve your career to the next level.
Yeah.
That's something that you cannot accomplish working in a day-to-day job, 8 to 5.
And nonprofits are a great way of kind of proving and distilling the point, because if you can't rely on money as the cheese, as the bait, as the lubricant of the machine, right? And so many companies just assume if only we could raise our salaries 5%, we'd have no problems recruiting. Lies. Go to a nonprofit where you see the insanely smart, insanely capable people who have made choices to take a pay cut for that. And that to me is the thing. If you're not willing, like, look, my value is to be thin. Am I willing to not eat that chocolate cake to be thin? No. Guess what? Not a value. It's just a nice idea. I just think being thin would be cool, but I'm not willing to do the work to make it happen. If you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to make a sacrifice, if you're not willing to support the pain to make it happen, then shut up and take the posters down and focus on what do you really care about?
Yeah. So in order to know what do you really care about as an organization, that survey matters a lot. Reach out to the real core employees, right? In order to know what is that atmosphere like when it comes to, at the front end level and being 8 to 5, working on different projects and things of that nature. And then ask them what they value the most being a part of your organization, and then tie that to your EVP, right?
You got to be very careful, because people, if you, let's say you make that Google form or that Survey Monkey or whatever tool you use, they just go, what do you value? And they go, yep. I value all these things. These are all really nice ideas. Again, what would you give 5% of your salary back for to get more of? Would you give 5% of your salary back to get more status? Great. This is a place that's status driven. Are you willing to give up 5% of your salary, some of your benefits, some of your time, some of your flexibility to get more empowerment, innovation, D&I, inclusivity, a better team, work for a better mission? If so, that's what you actually value. And I think so. And I've done a lot of these surveys where, you always have to kind of say, hey, leadership, this is the survey I'm planning on handing everybody. And the question that everybody always freaks out about and nixes is that one. What are you willing to get, which of these values would you be willing to take a 10% pay cut for? Because they panic. And I get why. They're like terrified that some strange consultant guy is coming in and saying, just to soften the waters, get ready for that 10% pay cut, everybody. And I know that's what it sounds like. So finding a way to say, what are you willing to take a punch in the face for? Because that's what you actually care about. Instead of just being, I like all these things. I like being thin, and I like having, friends, and I like having a social life, and I like staying in, and I like all these things that are wonderful. It's too easy to say yes to. What do you really care about? That's what matters. And that's where a strong employer brand gets to it. You think of a Goldman Sachs, who I adore because I think their employer brand is written on their face, on their $600 glasses, right? They are about saving the universe. I mean, no, hold on. Time out. That's not right. That's not right at all. That's not even close. They're there for the cash, and good for them. I'm not begrudging anybody making money. I like money a lot. I would wish I had more, but they don't pretend that they're anything other than money, 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 money. You look at their websites, people with incredibly expensive suits. They got the $6,000 watches, and probably 6,000 is being nice. That's the entry level watch. They got the 30,000 Philip Petites, right? They're rocking some serious hardware. It's all about money, the status that money can bring, the value money can bring, the reason, every single element. Nobody goes, yeah, I'd like to work at Goldman Sachs because you know what? They're a great team, or I get to go home at 5. No one says that. They say about money. And to me, it is the most crystal clear distillation of we give up our time, our energy, our family, our social lives, our passion. We give it all up for what? Money. That's an employer brand. That is an employer brand.
So maybe, they should be organizations, they should be understanding, okay, what it is that matter the most for you in order to attract the talent. Let's say, for example, there will be a ton of people out there, ton of candidates out there who value money. Just, I'm taking this as an example.
Everybody loves money.
Goldman Sachs, but
but would you love money? I love money. Would I give you 14 hours of my day every day to make more money? No. And that's great. That is an absolutely right answer. That means don't work at Goldman Sachs. But there are people who go, I'll give you 16 hours a day. Take it all. What do I need a weekend for? And that's the person who will be very happy. Goldman Sachs, or the employer brand, is a sense of, what is the transaction I'm getting out of this job? Am I getting X for Y? What am I giving up to get? And if you don't make that clear, if you just say, it's a fun, great place where everybody can be happy to work, I don't understand that. Not because I don't understand what it means to be happy. That's a set. You're not my therapist. We're not going to talk about that separately. But it's because I don't understand what you mean by that. I've been in plenty of organizations where what makes everybody else happy makes me insane. And I feel like, oh, I'm in the wrong spot. And the things that make me happy make other people just ludicrous. They're like, what? Why would you do that? And I get that. But if a company can't say, we're here because we are all willing to give 24/7, 110% towards this idea of making a dent in the universe. Think of Apple in the 80s, right? These are people who got screamed at by one of the best screamers in the world, Mr. Steve Jobs. They knew that job was going to be hard. They were going to be asked to do the impossible on a regular basis. And when they couldn't quite make impossible, they got screamed at or fired and brutal, but they knew they were working towards something amazing. That's an employer brand. What are you giving up to get? If you're postal service employees, don't ever ask me to work at the postal service. That sounds like hell. That sounds like the worst job ever. But there are people for whom that is the dream job because they get stability, they get regularity, they know what the offers are, they know how to get the promotions aren't political. It's all based on tests. That sounds great for them. And that's fantastic for them, but not for me. That's about employer brand. To whom does what I care about really matter? Bring those people in and push all the other 98% of people away. That's a strong employer brand.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about rippling the candidates or rippling the wrong candidates. But before we get to that, let's share some comments that we received online. So how this platform works is that if I'm getting comments from Facebook or Twitter, I can share it, but not on LinkedIn. So bear with me. So we have TV Ravu, sir. I mean, I should call him as a sir because his books are those that I've learned HR or anything in the realm of management when I was in my school and college. And Manisha, thank you so much for joining in. And we have a comment on our LinkedIn from Divagar from India. Great points, makes sense as an overall perspective. Any thoughts on candidate and employee experience that further aligns with employer branding?
Yeah. So I mean, and as fun as employer brand was 3 years ago, as the cool thing everybody was into, this year it's all about candidate experience. Or last year was candidate experience. And to me, everybody sees candidate experience the same way. White gloves, amazing service. The limo picks you up, takes you to the office, takes you to the interview. You're whisked away. You get a bottle of water. You get a swag. You get a little notebook and a pen with the company's name on it. If it's a really good job, you get the really nice metal water bottle, right? The really nice ones. You're taken to a very swanky office. The interviewers come to you. You always know what's going on. They bake in the bathroom break. Everybody's engaged with you. Everybody wants to know what you think. At the end of the time, you do there for an hour, do it for 4 hours, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, somebody comes, walks you to the door, thanks you so much, shakes your hand, puts you in the limo and sends you on your way. And that's great and all, but no. Real candidate experience. The value of candidate experience is it provides a sneak peek, an accurate and authentic sneak peek into what it's actually like to work there. If you get a limo treatment, I would expect I get a limo every day. That's simple. You want to tell me that the office is great for interviewing? I expect every single office to be just as swank. I expect swag every single day. You've set the expectations that this is what this company is all about. I go to the U.S. Army, and I imagine other countries are similarly fashioned where if you're in the Army and you want to join the Rangers, the interview process, the candidate experience process involves getting shot at. It involves putting a 45-pound backpack on and trudging through water and sand up a beach and climbing walls and hills and hearing the bullets flying over your head and puking because you're exhausted and you're taking everything you can take. It's amazing. And that is a unbelievably good candidate experience because it says, this is the job.
Yeah.
There's no limo
here. This is
here.
what it takes. Take it or leave it.
Like, yeah, this is a white glove. And the Army will tell you, they have more candidates than they know what to do with. People who want to say, I want to go there because I want to test myself, because that's what the Army is all about. No one goes to the Army to make a lot of money. They go for God and country and flag and all that good stuff, but then they really go to test themselves. How strong am I really? And that's great. And that's why I think you want to talk candidate experience. Open the doors. Show them what it's really like. What is this coming? Is it really, you want to project this image that you have it all figured out. You know what's going on. You're slick. You got all the pieces put into place. And I take that job and I walk in and everybody's like, I don't know. I'm making it up every day. I'm confused. The real problem with the recruiting and hiring experience is broken expectations. And recruiters and sourcers and employer branders and recruiting managers, hire managers, and all these people set this expectation before the hire. And
Mhm.
after the hire, it's like a different company. It's like,
Mhm.
where the hell, what happened here? And so if you can find a way to make this piece look like this piece, you've got a much better chance of saying, look, and then you get to kind of spin it or talk about it or frame it and say, look, this is a place where it looks chaotic, it looks messy, and it is. But the value of that is we haven't figured it all out yet, and we'd like you to help us figure it out. That is, you get to put your fingerprints over this chaos because there's a piece of this chaos that's going to be yours, and you get to own and manage and make amazing, and you get to do amazing work. Some places, hey, we've got it all figured out. Your job is to show up and to do it accurately and appropriately. It's not chaos. It's not unstructured. It is the opposite of unstructured. It's completely structured. You need to know that. And what we've built is this Potemkin village, and that may not be a reference everybody gets, but this idea. So 150 years ago, I think it was Catherine the Great, was Queen of Russia or Tsarina of Russia, and she wanted to know that her country was the best in the world, and so she did a tour. And so she would drive her carriages through towns, and these towns were effectively slums. So what would happen is the government would show up the day before, put a facade of a pretty town in front of her because they knew she's just going to drive right past. She's not stopping. She's not looking. They literally put up these facades of attractive buildings and successful businesses. And she would drive past and go, this is a great place to live. This is the best country in the world. They created these, what they called Potemkin villages. And interviewing does the exact same thing. They go, you're only here for an hour. We can lie to you all you want. Chances are you won't even get the applicant. You won't even get the offer. And if you get the offer, there's a 50-50 shot you won't even say yes to it. So who cares? So I'll lie to you all I want. Who cares? You're creating these, like here's the best indication that you're doing something wrong. If your company has one of those special interview rooms, so the candidate walks in and they shake the hand at the lobby and they bypass the rest of the business and bypass the rest of and they go to that other office over there that only happens, that you can only use if you're interviewing people and you don't get to see the rest of the office. Potemkin village, you are lying to everybody. You're trying to create this perfect little microcosm that is not true. Your job is to take what is real here. I'm flipped back and forth here. What is real about this job and put it in front of people to say before they take the job, so that when they walk in, they go, I know what I'm walking into. Because it's when people go, wait, this is what I expected. That's when you've lost them. That is when the countdown to the resume polish starts right there. And if anything you can do to keep that from happening is a huge win from an employer brand and recruiting and hiring practice.
I mean, the expectation versus reality, right? I mean, it is not just a mere, minor thing, if you will. When a candidate step in and see, all the, when they walk through that hallway, I mean, they see the even if it is a cubicle or even if it is a desk of other employees with all the pictures, and then they live there day to day.
Or is it all clean and quiet and dead, and everybody's hunkered down and typing and doing it? What is the thing?
Yeah, totally. So if they can see a little bit of the culture, a little bit of, the areas where your employees live and breathe every single day, that gives them an idea into, okay, this is the place where I can live in, right? I can move into, this is my second family, right? I can see myself working there. So these are the minor things where employers are missing in terms of giving that expectation versus reality, in terms of giving that impression when they call in a candidate to come in for an interview and utilize that as an opportunity to sell something.
Yes.
So going back to one of your points you said about, the candidates or repelling the candidates, right?
Yes.
So we are not for quantity aspect right here. I mean, we can get tons of application, but we wanted to make sure we are getting the quality that we are looking for, the right fit if we're looking for. And in that aspect, how can organization, kind of use the employer brand in order to repel the wrong candidates?
So I will be I think I'm the 104,000th person to use this metaphor, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Recruiting is dating. Recruiting is absolutely like dating. The reason why I don't attract a lot of gay men applying for dating me is because I don't look like a gay guy. I look like a straight white bald dude because I am a straight white bald dude. It's simple as that. You attract who you are. So if you're trying to get supermodels to date you, go look like a supermodel. You become who you attract. You attract who you are. So if in my lovely apartment, you can see my air conditioner. This is my dining room, by the way. Thank you. Welcome to my Life Central. No one thinks I work for Goldman Sachs. No one thinks that this is who I am. And if I said, hey, everybody, work for my company, you are inferring all these amazing pieces of data because I've got a tiny little plant over here. I think you can see it in the corner. It's probably barely alive. You've got the air conditioner. You've got the whiteboard that is really clearly from Home Depot that I just glued to a wall. It's clearly not a place where I have it all figured out. I'm telling you so many stories about who I am and what it's like to work here with this one shot. Right, you just screen cap this. There, that's the whole company. What you portray is what you approach. So let's look at every career site you've ever seen in the world. Have you ever seen someone not smile in a career site? No, of course not.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me get back.
Everybody's smiling and having
amazing.
A good time. Yeah.
It's the best. And how many people work there? I mean, how many people, that's the actual experience of working there? Goose egg, nothing. You have to show the negative. You have to show the full picture. People don't believe it when you just give them the rosy picture. So once you provide the rosy picture, not just the rosy picture, but the complete and accurate, authentic, and realistic picture of what it's like to work here, let people make their own decisions. It's the problem is we've over-optimized on this. Let's overspin. Let's remove all the negative we can so that people don't see that stuff. And we've all learned that on Glassdoor, it's all about reframing the conversation so every negative looks like a positive. We've all been taught to make it look amazing. And then you're going to get a million applicants and they're all going to hate you because it's not accurate. You should be able to say, look, this negative part of the company, this is where it's coming from. And this is why it's useful to some people. Right? If we go back to the dating metaphor, I don't need 5,000 wives or girlfriends or boyfriends. I don't need that. I need one. I just need the one. And frankly, I can barely hang on to the one I got. It's just a lot of work. That's life, right? Candidates are the same way. You don't need 100 people. You don't need 10 people. You need 2 people. And you only need 2 because your hiring manager is going to want to feel like they picked one. Oh, they just need to feel like they have a choice. So you only need anything more than 2 great applicants is wasted energy. And so instead of trying to appeal to people who will never apply and by, showing off the nicest place in the world, look, if you're trying to hire Steve Jobs doesn't want the nicest place to work. Steve Jobs wants to know that this is a place where he can get his hands dirty, where he can yell at people with impunity, that he can make amazing things happen. It's not about smiling people on the career site. The smiling people on the career site attract people who don't know what they want and just want something. And, and it's put there by hiring managers and recruiters who go, well, we got to put something, so you might as well put a positive spin on it. And I get the instinct, but the ability to say, no. The best recruiting tool Amazon ever had was that picture of Jeff Bezos sitting at a door on 2 sawhorses 20 years ago or 25 years ago, however long it goes. That's the beginning of Amazon. So everything you think you know about Amazon, the money and the Prime and the this and the that and the TV shows and the Tumbleleaf and the whole stuff started with a door on 2 sawhorses. And to me, that says, this is where I came from. This is what we're all about. No matter how big we get, this is who we are. Now, no one looks at that picture and goes, there's an attractive picture. No one looks at that guy and goes, there's an attractive guy. And I don't know what he did. Money clearly makes everybody more attractive because he is clearly, I don't know what happened there. He used to look like a total geek and now he looks like a Bond villain. I don't know how that worked. But his ability to say, look, this is where we came from. This is what we're all about. This is what we care about at our core because this is where we started. That changes every other message Amazon puts out there about working there. It says, hey, it's not about the most pleasant place to work. It's not about getting rich all the time. It's about solving hard problems. That's what we're really here for. And that's really the core of what Amazon's employer brand is. The problem is we get distracted by Amazon Prime and the Tumbleleaf and the TV shows and the stuff. And I get to call it and they show up and all the good stuff. And we go, oh, it must be an amazing place to work. It's like magic. It's like, no, it's a really hard place to work. And the Glassdoor scores bear that out. So people looking for an easy place to work should run for the hills. And that's great. And so, but if you put those smiling people on the career site, all you're getting is people say, oh, that must be an amazing place to work or an easy place to work.
It kills me when employers put stock pictures on their career site. And I don't know if people are still doing it, but
yes.
Amazing.
I did an audit 3 years ago and I found 2 insurance companies that used the same picture. It's like you're in the same industry. It's like, okay. All right.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to definitely talk to you about, the metaphor that you talked about, and it kind of reminds me to talk about the phone industry. right? I mean, everybody sit together. I mean, I haven't worked in film industry before or at all. I mean, it's not in my dream. But I've seen, most of the videos where behind the scenes, right? So everybody is sitting together, reading the script and making
Mhm.
sure everybody understand the core of that story and then working towards it.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we are missing in our function, be it talent acquisition, HR, or employer branding,
Yeah.
right? Recruiters, they sit in a cubicle, they make calls, send emails, and then they do their 8 to 5 jobs. But at the same time, HR, they do policies, marketing, they do their trick. But are they sitting together and then understanding the real agenda of what they are trying to do? And if
Almost not.
so,
Almost.
as a recruiter, how should I talk about employer branding? Or how should I talk about, employer value proposition? Am I prepped enough, or do I have the necessary information in order to talk about it right at the first? So what's your take in terms of how do we bring everybody together in order to put a great story out?
The concept of employer brand is just that. It's a concept. It's a mental structure of thought and ideas and values that we apply and we use to make sure everybody's on the same page. But people ask me, like, what's your favorite employer brand, or what's your best example of employer branding? And to me, employer branding should be invisible. Like, people say they hate marketing, and I said, no, you actually hate bad marketing. You love good marketing. You just don't see it as marketing. You see it as entertainment. You see it as value. You see it as information. You see it as inspiration, whatever you call it. You don't see it as marketing. Employer brand's the same way. The second you point to it and say, that's employer brand, you're doing something wrong. It should feel authentic, right? Employer brand is a kind of business therapy. It's about distilling and pulling out why people like to work there. Now, if you have to tell recruiters who work there why people like to work there, you got a problem.
Yeah.
They work there. They're there. They said, heck, they hired half of those people. They know who they are. An employer brand should never tell recruiters, okay, here's the new story. That's a failure. That's a breakdown. Because if you're trying to whitewash or plant a new facade, if you're doing another Potemkin village of this is what we're all about this month, you're screwed. You're toast. Go home, find another job. You're done. It's got to be about here's what's real and how we reveal it, and then how it shifts over time. I like to think of it as a bonsai tree, right? The tree exists. You don't make a tree, right? But what you do is you trim some stuff and you chop some stuff and you let this part grow and you say, let's cultivate that aspect and let's trim it down. That's what employer brand is. Hey, we talk about how we're very inclusive, but our maternity policy is really crappy. Okay, let me talk to HR. Let me say, look, this may take a year or two to kind of make changes in that policy, but I'm slowly trimming away at that side of the tree because the goal is to make the tree grow in this direction. That takes time. An employer brand job is a long game. It is a long game. It is not a let's slap some processes on it, let's slap some tactics on it. Anybody who tries to tell you it is lying to you again. It is a long game. Now, as a consultant, as someone who talks about this and sells these services, I can help you get better at it and seeing the process and seeing the framework, but then you got to get your hands dirty every single day and apply it and make sure it works. And your job is to say, that one recruiter is suddenly talking about how we're all about this thing. It's like, okay, let's bring them back in, not because, hey, here's the new thing, but about, no, we're really all about this. Look at all the other recruiters talking about these things. Look at all the hiring managers talking in this direction. You can't go this way. You have to be aligned with that. Let's talk about why you think it's this. Let's talk about why that piece makes sense. And let's see how you bring that in. That's the job. It's not about, making something out of nothing. It's about revealing, but distilling, right? Again, let's go back to dating. When you go on the first date, you don't say, here's my CV, here's my social security. This is my mom. This is my dad. This is my ex-girlfriend. You don't, whoa, run away. You distill into, look, the reason why people like me is because I'm kind of smart and kind of funny. That's my brand, right? Am I other things? Am I nice? I don't know. We'll figure that out. Am I tall? Well, maybe you can figure that out. Am I rich? Well, look at this air conditioner. Come on. I'm clearly making him on me. You bring that up over time, but the brand is the tip of the spear about, hey, we're all about this. It's the thing that differentiates me from other people. It's the thing that differentiates your brand from other companies.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are just about to wrap up. I didn't even know that 60 minutes went this fast. And in between those 60 minutes, we have people chime in, and then we have new people came in, and then they shared some comments. So I want to give them a shout out. Jim Braceforth from
Hi, Jim.
on LinkedIn, and we have Vipin, William, Yusuf, and all those comments on Facebook. And I've been getting a lot of likes, which I don't know. I mean, I don't have the visibility to list out the names, but thank you so much for all of your support. Last but not least, we have John Graham join with us at the very end of the podcast, or broadcast, if you can call. He is talking about, I personally love good marketing. Question for you. How do you get RPO recruiters who may not sit on site to communicate the culture of the EB?
Yeah, you are at a disadvantage without question. That is a hard thing to ask, but you still need to figure it out. You still need, even if you use a kind of a sketched kind of sense of what that brand is or the talking points, you still need to know them. If you look at I did a thing where I realized that the project manager role for Google and the project manager for American Standards are like 95 the same. Now, one is Google and one makes ceramics and toilets. So the fact that the job posting looks and acts the same doesn't mean that they're the same job. Your job is to figure out, okay, if that's the foundation, what am I building on top of it? Are you talking about how it's a stable job, you're going to do great work, people are going to use your products all the time, or is it going to be Google? Is it going to be innovation? Is it going to be, what is the thing? So you have to be able to pull that out a little bit from the hiring manager, from the company, to say, look, what really makes your company special? And then really, if you care about it, how to push back on that hiring manager and say, yeah, everybody likes those things, but what are you really, right? If you're saying, hey, company, why do people like working for you? Oh, we're really collaborative. We're a family. And they all say family. I don't know why. I mean, when's the last time you fired your cousin? I mean, I haven't done that in a while. So calling business family to me is always a red flag on a lot of levels. But understand, so what do you care about most? What do people here sacrifice for? To go back to Seth Godin, finish this sentence. People like us do things like this. Do you work hard? Do you work late? Do you have fun? Are you all about the team? Are you all about individual achievement? People like us always do this. What is that thing? If you can push the hiring manager of the company a little bit to say, pull that out a little bit more beyond the obvious, that is what you sell. That is the idea that is unusual or different. Put the right spin on it where you say, and this is why that's useful, and this is why that's interesting, and this is why you might care about it, because as an RPO, you're trying to create that one-to-one connection. That's how that works.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, James. And I really, really appreciate you being here and sharing your valuable time with our audience. And to our audience, thank you so much for chiming in on all of the social media platforms. And if I didn't shout out your name, and please bear with me. And I really, really, really appreciate you being out there. And stay tuned for next Wednesday. We will be live on air 8 a.m. Central Time. And until then, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, James.
Thanks.